us at another episode of Sprout HR and Legal Experts by Sprout Solutions in partnership with UpUp App. UpUp App is an employee engagement platform that makes performance management simple and recognition fun to build engaged teams and happy workplaces. How are you guys? I'm sure this is a critical time for HR, so we're here to give you legal and practical advice to help you lead your company from outbreak to breakthrough. Just to give you a brief introduction to who we are, Sprout is an HR technology company that helps your company take it to the next level in terms of taking care of your people. We provide system and support for recruitment, timekeeping to payroll, and analytics all in a cloud-based system to enable work from home for you. And now we hope to be able to help you lift up your team during this crisis. So while waiting for everyone to tune in, I'd like to introduce to you the raffle mechanics. Okay, so here's our slide. Here's how you can join the raffle. So to do this, collect all 3 keywords and get a chance to win 500 pesos worth of Lazada gift certificate. Okay, so you have to collect all 3 keywords that will be flashed on the screen throughout the seminar. Then after that, just follow our official Facebook page at sproutsolutions.ph, okay, and then comment all 3 keywords on the post pinned on our page. Afterwards, we'll announce the lucky winner at the end of the session, and we'll be sending the Lazada GC code through email after the session before 3 p.m. All right, did you get that, guys? I'll assume you did. All right, so alert, raffle keyword number 1 is economy. That's right, so our first raffle keyword number 1 is economy. I hope you guys got that. Okay, so today we have very knowledgeable attorneys and consultants who are here to give you different tips on how to lead your company from outbreak to breakthrough. So prepare your questions for the fireside chat later and ask them anything on your mind with regards to matters concerning our topic for today, which is Recovery Plan, Part 2, Post-ECQ Business Operations Planning. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Reynald Salvador. Ray Salvador is a seasoned audit and risk management professional with 9 years of experience from various industries like IT BPO, tech companies, manufacturing, real estate, financial institution, and service companies. He had performed a wide range of engagements from conducting audit in finance, IT, operations, compliance, and taxations to assisting companies in establishing their risk management procedures, including business continuity plans. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Reynald Salvador. Virtual round of applause.
Thanks, Miggy, and good morning, everyone. Today is already the last day of April. Parang kailan lang when the community quarantine was implemented due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So in our previous webinar, we shared with you how to manage the risk in time of COVID-19. This also covers the event during ECQ and also those events that could happen after the ECQ. And just last week, we also shared how to start your recovery plan in our part 1. But it is more on the financial side to forecast what will be or our expected sales after the ECQ is lifted or relaxed. And for now, we will align our response to the risk management and also our financial forecast to guide us in creating our post-ECQ business operations plan. Next slide, please. So first is let's quickly run through the response of our government to manage the impact of COVID-19 and also the impact of the enhanced community quarantine in the business sector. Next slide, please. Here's the timeline again. Last March 12, the community quarantine was declared effective March 15. And just day after, it was escalated or the ECQ was declared effective 12 midnight of March 17. Also on March 25, Bayanihan to Hilas 1 Act or the RA 11469 was also declared or issued rather. And early this month, April 7, the ECQ was extended in the whole island of Luzon or for the whole Luzon from April 12 to April 30. So the supposed deadline, which is today, was also extended last Friday for high-risk areas. So it was extended. The ECQ was extended to May 15, while for other moderate or low-risk areas naman, it is eased down or the general community quarantine or GCQ was implemented effective tomorrow. So the government is mainly considering the doubling time in the number of cases or COVID-19 cases, and also the LGU's healthcare capacity. This is their main consideration to decide and recommend what type of quarantine should be implemented, or if it should be lifted or is or downgraded. Next slide, please. We'll quickly run through lang these policies and programs they implement to manage the impact of pandemic to the business sector and its employee. So you can also request for a copy of this deck later. This program was also discussed in detail in the previous webinar of Attorney Ryan and Attorney Lester. We have a website where you can visit or view all of the previous webinars then. So maybe Julie can share it in the chat box or the Zoom chat. The government also implement, these are the programs implemented by the government, the P3ERF, mainly providing financial program or financial assistance for micro and small enterprises. We also have the SBWS or Small Business Wage Subsidy Program to provide or to help our employees in the business or small business sectors. So currently there are three methods: the application through My SSS account in the SSS website, the e-form submission via secure link to send through email, and the last method, which was implemented recently lang, I think it's around April 26 and 27. This is through uploading an Excel file in the sbws.sss.gov.ph website. Next slide, please. In the Bayanihan to Hilas 1 Act, on the section 4 AA, the government also grants 30-day grace period for all loans falling due within the ECQ. Also, for the DTI Memorandum Circular 2012, grace period was also granted for both residential and commercial rent. Next slide, please. Here are also some LGUs where most of the central business districts or CBD are mainly located. They also issued grace period or extension on payment of business taxes and other obligation in favor of the LGU. So mainly in Pasig, Makati, and Taguig. Next slide, please. So after the programs implemented by the government during this ECQ, now let's run through the policies the government will implement after April 30 or starting tomorrow, and also what changes should we expect or foresee in the post-ECQ environment. Next slide, please. Okay. So per IATF resolution number 29, which was also announced last Friday by presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, the ECQ was extended until May 15 for high-risk areas. So this includes NCR, Central Luzon except Aurora Province, the Calabarzon, Province of Pangasinan, Benguet, Iloilo, and Cebu, Baguio City, Cebu City, and Davao City. So for other areas naman, categorized as low or moderate risk areas, this will be under the GCQ or General Community Quarantine. And by May 15, we are expecting the IATF to recommend again if the ECQ or GCQ will be extended, lifted, or modified. So next slide, please. Okay, the general population is allowed to go out during this period, but only to access basic necessities. Also, there are select workers that are allowed to go out and work in phases. So there are certain categories and also industries or sectors that will be allowed during this period. Later, we will discuss that in detail. The following are not allowed to go out during this period. These are those who are less than 21 years old, those who are 60 years old and above, and also those who reside with comorbidities, or other risk factors. They are required to stay home. And heads up, the LGUs are also ordered to enforce night curfew for non-workers. Next slide, please. For the next slide, we will share with you the comparison between the ECQ and GCQ as to sectors allowed or not allowed during this period. First is the sectors allowed during this period or during the ECQ and GCQ. We have the agriculture and manufacturing and industry and processing plants, mainly for the basic necessities. But of course, these sectors that will be allowed to operate will be required to comply with strict social or physical distancing and other mandatory safety measures. So for the safety measures, later we will discuss this in more details or depend based on the bill that is recently being proposed. Next slide, please. Okay. For service sectors allowed both in the ECQ and GCQ, the IATF recently added a few services in their meeting last April 27 to be allowed in both enhanced and general community quarantine. This includes the dental and EENT or the eye, ears, nose, and throat clinic, as well as the delivery service for products and for products other than the basic necessities. So that allowed in the GCQ are those delivery for basic necessities lang. So now, starting to now since we are still under the ECQ, deliveries for for example, clothing accessories will be allowed as well. We will also share this slide with you. Just send a request so you can access this, or so we can send it to you na lang para we can move forward to different. We can discuss more items in details. Alright. Next slide, please. Repairs and installation of machineries and equipment are also included, and also the repairs of computers, personal, and household goods are also allowed during this period. So kindly take note of which sector you fall under to guide you when you create your disaster recovery plan or business operations plan later. Next slide, please. Laundry shops, including self-services, are also allowed to operate during ECQ. So this is the addition during additional services included this week to be allowed to operate during ECQ. Next slide, please. So these are the sector not allowed during ECQ but will be allowed to operate under GCQ. First is the industry, other manufacturing activities. So under ECQ, manufacturing of beverage, non-alcoholic and alcoholic is not allowed, but under GCQ or General Community Quarantine, this will be allowed. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez also said in an interview that production and retail of alcoholic beverages may resume in areas under the GCQ. So please take note that some LGUs may impose liquor bans even under GCQ. Again, reminder, social or physical distancing and other safety measures should be complied. These safety measures will be implemented by the government either under ECQ or GCQ then. Next slide, please. Here are the other sectors, again, not allowed under the ECQ but allowed in GCQ. So barbershops, salons, spas, and other personal care industries will be allowed but with strict health standards. So please take note of this. For what specific strict health standards, let's refer later to the mandatory safety measures that is being currently being proposed. At least that can give us some guidelines, since I don't think there's an available IRR already for the strict health standards. Next slide, please. So please take note for those under or dealing with real estate sector, under GCQ, real estate buying and selling is still not allowed. So for real estate companies, including employees and or agents of these companies, you may want to prioritize this risk to create appropriate response so you can manage its impact to your business. There's also a study by Colliers that residential condo prices in Manila will drop by 15% this year compared to last year, and before slightly recovering by 2021. So they also see that residential property rents will decline by 5.5% and vacancy rate to increase to 15% this year compared to 11% last year. And this report was posted in Bloomberg yesterday, so medyo fresh pa to. You can consider it when you're creating your strategy or business plan, as well as your risk management. You can update it if it has impact in any way in your business operation. Next slide, please. Under GCQ, we can expect that the government offices will resume their operations. So also office administration, office support, and other business activities were also allowed to operate under the GCQ. So yung mga pending natin with the government, we can follow up now for those areas rather in GCQ. Next slide, please. So here are the services naman and activities that will not be allowed to operate under ECQ and GCQ. Take note of these services. If your business is included here, for example, yung gym or fitness studios, you may want to explore muna or divest to other services that is related to your core business. For example, going or creating digital or holding virtual classes with your members or virtual consultations and sell of equipment or devices. But of course, you need to align your business activities with your registration then. The time, please let's take note that the time is changing and we need to adapt fast, considering that the demand in this so-called new normal is also changing. So for this sector, since under GCQ, which we foresee then that after May 15, if the ECQ is not extended, most likely these high-risk areas, if downgraded to moderate or low-risk areas, will be under GCQ or hindi ganun kalayo yung implementation, which also means that this sector or services will not or will still not be allowed, most likely, not certain, to operate during that period. So yun, we can explore what or divest our services, but at least we can still generate revenue and minimize the losses during this period. Next slide, please. So here are the rest of the sectors not allowed under ECQ or GCQ. Again, we need to think of ways like using technology for our services to adapt in this new normal. For example, maybe we can explore yung VR or virtual reality for museums, while for libraries naman, we can opt to digitize these documents or yung mga sa different docs books natin and maybe implement a subscription or membership type setup to access these documents or the soft copy of these documents. For travel agency and those under the tourism industry, this will be indeed difficult period, as noted by Tourism Secretary Puyat during a virtual hearing of the House Committee on Tourism. I think that was last Tuesday. International travel might not happen this year, so that's she quoted that during the House Committee hearing. And for hotels naman, they are also advised to establish systems for contactless check-in and may have to do away with the usual breakfast buffet. So with these changes in our environment, the business should also adapt to these changes to ensure the continuity of their operation and of course survival then ng business. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Congress filed House Bill number 6623, or the New Normal for the Workplace and Public Spaces Act of 2020. Some call it simply the New Normal Bill. This was filed last Tuesday, and if passed into law, this will be effective for 3 years or sooner once a viable vaccine has contained or eradicated COVID-19. As noted earlier, included in this bill is the universal mandatory safety measures. Here are the key items that can have impact if we operate our business. So we have here the mandatory wearing of masks in public places and workplaces. So meaning even inside of our workplace or office, everyone will be required to wear their face mask pa rin. And also with the physical and social distancing, we would need to evaluate and maximize our workplace or our office area. This can either have direct impact on our rent, like additional expense to expand our work area, or for those who can work or have been working remotely, for example, you've implemented work from home arrangement, and you can still maintain your output, then maybe it's time to assess if you should still maintain that office or that rent. For the planned schedule naman, we have your government to implement planned schedule for pedestrians traveling to and from their respective workplaces. This can affect our employees and ultimately our production or business. So unfortunately, as of the moment, I haven't seen any additional information or IRR as to how they want to implement this planned schedule. especially usually yung office hours natin is 8 to 5 or 9 to 6. So not sure how it will be managed, but let's wait and see. And of course, this will also trigger us to explore talaga yung remote working or telecommuting. If we are feasible, especially for the back end of our operation, like for example, the IT, accounting, payroll natin, we can do that on the back end or via cloud for different solutions provider to, or at the very least, to save space, our works, and also to manage din yung employees natin, their safety while commuting to from their house to here also the government agencies are required to create digital governance mechanism for their services. This will be also an opportunity for us since government transaction will be more efficient, hopefully. Okay. Next slide, please. So for public transportation, motorcycle taxis will still not be allowed. When the public transport, if they limit the amount of passengers, this will also definitely affect our employees. We need to assess as early as now those functions that can be done remotely, as noted earlier, or in a work from home setup, or do we need to invest in providing our employees some quarters near our workplace or production area, or even partner with different private shuttles or service provider to ensure that they are not affected by this limit in the amount of passengers that can board public vehicle. Also for contactless payment, this is an opportunity mostly for fintech companies since this will be mandated or most likely recommended by the government. And this practice is mainly to ensure transmission of the COVID-19. So more or less, marami yung i-implement nilang programs for the cashless transactions. So we have currently, for example, GCash, PayMaya. Next slide, please. Okay. For classes naman, this is already being discussed now. If they can start by August or earlier, what we now see is that online classes will definitely become the new normal. And also for those small schools or private schools, rather, they are investing more on having the online classes then to generate more revenue, of course, and also to reach out to a lot of students or customers. So the biggest challenge now will be for public schools, especially now that physical distancing and physical or social distancing protocol will most likely be required pa rin, even in schools. So the floor plans of schools would also have to follow, as noted here, floor plans should follow then. And with this domino effect, this can also lead to lower number of graduate and lack of supply of talents in the market. Next slide, please. Okay, next is for monitoring of private commercials and industry workplaces. So this will mainly affect us. As noted here, the national government and LGU would have to maintain a database profiling all private business in the country. And also businesses would need to submit a new normal workforce and workplace management plan to their respective LGUs. So please take note of this management plan. If this is passed into law, before we can start or resume our operation, we need to create this plan. And this can be part of our business recovery or disaster recovery plan. This plan also will most likely include our required activities and programs that the business will implement to comply with the universal and mandatory safety measures as noted earlier in the previous slide. So, and since it will be required before companies allowed to resume their operation, we should create at the very least kahit ngayon pa lang a proposal to ensure that when it is passed into law or if we create a new business, we already know how to create the plan and also how can we prepare our business for this type of transition. Next slide, please. So here are some example of workplace-specific protocols and measures. So for the food and beverage industry, they would be still allowed to operate for takeout and delivery services only. Dine-in services would be gradually reintroduced, but there should be a 2-meter distance between tables. So it would affect again yung leases, yung capacity nila to accommodate. So most likely, even yung mga customers natin will opt for takeout or deliveries. And also in these past few days, you might have noticed how food industry is slowly adapting in this new normal then. Since yun nga, dining services are not yet allowed, with the lack of foot traffic, they are investing more on deliveries or their digital presence. There are also instances where restaurants even deliver ready-to-cook items like Jollibee and KFC. So hindi na siya yung ready to eat, yung ready to cook naman where the individuals or the customers can store it in their own some refrigerator, then microwave na lang or fry depending on the type of item. And one of the, under the food industry or restaurant that will be greatly affected would be those who provide buffet services. But recently, even buffet restaurants are slowly exploring this type of service or adapting to this new normal. For example, Vikings, they are currently accepting deliveries. And if I remembered correctly, you'll be able to select different dish, I think, for selected items for a fee of 600 pesos, more or less, with a limited number. So we can also expect this type of deliveries for other buffet. Even yung mga usual samgyeopsal restaurants, they providing delivery for the ready-to-cook items then. And also, domino effect with this, we can also expect other restaurants to increase their digital presence and partner with different food delivery platforms. So, which I also suggest if your restaurant or your franchise business, you need, as much as possible, as early as now, you need to partner with different platform and service provider then. Since dining will be very limited and even foot traffic in relation to the restaurant's location, kasi previously we considered the foot traffic and for the rent and also to look for a good place. Now, since the limited na lang who are allowed to go out and also for who are allowed to, or the capacity in every month, later we will discuss that as well. You may want to evaluate then yung space you're currently renting if it is still cost effective for your business. So maybe you can, and especially with the dine-in will be limited and gradual lang, so that it ups for your space and as well as cost money for your rent. Next slide, please. Okay, sorry, there's a question here that how would the public transport sector cope up with this social distancing? Actually, that's also one of our questions. And considering that even without social distancing, during rush hour, talagang limited or hindi capable or not enough yung mga public transport natin to cater to all commuters. So that's one of the risks that we're managing. If this has effect to our employees, we're looking at remote work or work from home setup, yun service provider like private shuttle, and also providing quarters with compliance or comply pa rin for social and physical distancing. So let's wait for the government. What are their plans for this one? They can, I'm not certain as of now, it can be related to the planned schedules then. So let's go back to the workplace-specific protocols and measure for commercial stores naman and centers like shopping malls, boutiques, and supermarkets. So again, since the number of people that will be allowed to enter the malls will be limited, this will greatly affect the foot traffic. So evaluate again your lease spaces. It is not only limited to food industry or restaurant business, for example, since clothing and other industry are already, or trade under the trade business are already allowed to operate, and they are reliant on the number of people visiting the malls, maybe it's time to reassess, reevaluate. Not necessarily means na automatic you need to pull out your lease space naman. You need to study them first, create cost-effective analysis or cost-benefit analysis rather. This will also change how marketing works, since most of the people now will look online, so your marketing would change then. And with the usual, for example, Friday mall sale, this will be a new battle of digital presence na, or digital footprint from traffic. And as we assess in the new normal, this will be most likely the case. Next slide, please. So here for office building, and there must be a limit set of the number of people entering elevators, and more vending machines should be opened instead of operating cafeterias. As noted earlier for dine-in, if the gradual return of dine-in service is allowed, there's a limit of 1 to 2 meters space between different tables. So of course, we can't maximize our space if we implement it in our cafeteria. So one way is through vending machine. And with the limit or physical distancing in our elevator, at average is around 4 lang. So yung queuing din natin could have impact if 100% of our employees will report back at our office. So it's time talaga to evaluate if we should continue 100% of our employees should work within the premise of our office or can work remotely. We need to identify which function. Doesn't necessarily means naman, for example, 50%, the government only allowed 50%, that everything 50%. We can base it on the total headcounts natin, and that would be dependent on the management to decide sino-sino yung function muna, rather than having 5 departments, then 50% per department. It would be much better if to identify which function cannot operate remotely. And another item here is that companies would also be discouraged from holding physical meetings and instead resort to online methods of communication. So we have a lot of software and applications and other work tools that we can use. We have, for example, here Zoom. We also have, for those who are using G Suite, the Google Meet, and as well as those who are using the Microsoft 360, they have Microsoft Teams to do virtual meetings. Next slide, please. So for salon parlors, as noted earlier, these services will be allowed in GCQ provided that they comply with the strict health standards. So I'm not sure what are these, as of the moment, these strict health standards, but we can refer it earlier with the universal safety measures natin. So next slide, please. Here are other factors that you may want to consider then. The Balik Provincia program, this is being raised or being brought up in different views recently. This program is aimed not only to decongest Metro Manila, actually matagal na yung program na to. It is just being raised now kasi to address then yung congestion, to address yung COVID-19, and boost economic development in the provinces. They are looking at providing incentives to different investors or businesses who will opt for this program. You may want to consider this also in your business strategy, especially if you are required to, you can work remotely naman, and also you have enough talents to do that in those areas. And for manufacturing, the cost of living and minimum wage in provinces is much lower compared to the Greater Manila area. Another factor here is our poor business performance until 3Q. This is quite expected due to the impact of COVID-19, but a lot of economists and financial analysts are optimistic that the business recovery or the recovery of our economic performance will try to recover by fourth quarter this year. Oil prices quite low as of the moment. The futures for oil prices in the US as well, despite the cut in production, decreases even below $0 futures, to considering that they don't have enough spaces to store their oil production. Excuse me. Unemployment rate. So there's also a forecast that unemployment rate would continue to increase for the next 4 quarters. So this can also have impact in our consumer demand, especially that they will have lesser income or take-home pay to spend. And also, most of the employees will prioritize the essential products. So for those business revolving around essential products, this can be quite a challenge for some industries or for some products. Next slide, please. Okay, our raffle keyword number 2 is recovery. So we presented or shared with you the raffle keyword number 1, and this is the second one. So the last keyword will be shared later after this slide, after this presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. Next is business operations planning. We will align our plan with the items we discussed earlier for what do we expect in post-ECQ environment and what are based on what the government implemented. So now, when creating your plan, here are some activities to consider. So first is build your company's digital footprint and IT infrastructure. So making any type of a capex is quite counterintuitive during this period wherein cash flow or cash is king. But this investment will significantly impact your business ability to compete in the market within the next more or less 18 to 24 months. So as we know, online ordering and or e-commerce is picking up in the past few months, even before ECQ. Now, during quarantine, this has increased significantly and most likely continue to increase in the new normal. Also, as noted earlier, we should evaluate our physical stores compared to the benefit of going online and also foresee with the foreseen lesser or decrease in foot traffic compared to the digital traffic. This is also one of the factors or more of decision-making factors natin. We can also realign our budget in marketing if we go online or digital, and it would require us to have different approach in marketing then. And also for those under the marketing industry, you need to provide different programs then for your clients since the needs or your consumer are also located or have changed already due to the impact of this new normal or COVID-19 pandemic. Further, also, as employees and department managers, we should also evaluate how we can adapt easily to these potential changes. So when the business change, employees also should change. They can acquire additional skills so that they are more or less efficient or can adapt easily to these changes. And for the department managers naman, for your business operations, you need to align this with your overall business strategy then. Next is for the DOH and IATF guidance for safety protocols. So our safety protocols should align with what the government will require. We should incorporate the universal and mandatory safety measures in our standard operating procedures or SOP, and as well as policies, especially if this new normal bill is passed into law. As of now, it's not yet is still a bill, but it is a good to have to ensure or provide assurance to our employees that the management is doing their best to protect their health and safety. So, reminder again, part of this bill is the submission of the new normal workforce and workplace management plan. So, I suggest that you prepare for this plan or its equivalent, even if it's not yet required to provide. It's not provided to the government or to the LGUs. So next item is to adjust your product and services to accommodate your consumer needs. So assess your menu or your product offerings and identify opportunities for items that are designed for the new normal. Another best example here is what we discussed earlier. Since the dine-in restaurant is not yet allowed, we can install a multiple pop-up store for takeout and or increase our digital presence for online delivery to reach out to more consumers and as well as continue to increase our revenue. You can also partner with different online selling platforms or delivery platforms, or even opt for subscription type meals. This is common for office workers, wherein they will provide a daily meal for the day for the employees. Next slide, please. So next would be create and integrate into your system an operations document review or checklist and improvement plan. This is also the best time for managers to update your procedures, policies, job aids, works instruction, or other documents to align it with your operation in the new normal and integrate it within the system. So for HR practitioner, this can also cover the employee's job description and also the required skills for a certain role in this new type of process. Also, I suggest you create a checklist when you resume or plan to resume your operations to ensure that key activities are not missed out. For example, part of that checklist is to ensure that your workplace is disinfected first before all required clearance or government required documents are prepared and allowed you to resume your operations. You can also assign one function or for your under your audit or quality assurance to check or review if these activities are properly carried out and assess if and also verify if these are working effectively, and you can adjust again or review the plans that you implemented and improve it continuously. Next is to align recovery of your operation with the forecasted sales. So another important thing is prepare enough resources to meet the demand. You might have foreseen already the low demand the next few months, and to optimize your resources, ideally, you should only budget the required amount of your resources to meet this demand. So, and when discussing resources, most of the time, if not all, human resource will definitely be involved. And again, the difficult conversation for company right sizing will be brought up. So for your reference regarding this item, you might want to review or uh, get a copy of Attorney Lester's webinar last week. It is available also in our website. We've also provided you with some simple tools in our previous webinar on how to budget and prepare for the required resources and the part one of our disaster recovery planning. And last also, and I think the most important part is to communicate. For me, this is the most important part is communicate with your key stakeholders. So your key stakeholders can be internal or external, from your employees, business partners, suppliers, customers, and of course, kasama yung government doon. If you have new product or service offering, you should inform your customers or potential client. And also, as you change your business operation, you should also inform your employees what to expect and how to adapt fast or efficiently. And as we know, people are inherently resistant to change. So with proper communication, this can somehow mitigated. And since these resistance are more of internal, the friction between the management or the employees will be much lesser. For suppliers naman and vendors, of course, they are also affected with the COVID-19 pandemic. This ECQ and their operation might change as well. So I suggest you coordinate with them immediately while you're still finalizing your business operation plan to manage both your expectation and, for example, your expected a delivery lead time of 5 days, but due to the changes, lack of resources or whatever, they can only commit for 7 days. So this should be included in your business operations planning. Next slide, please. So next, when you decide to go online or increase your digital presence, here are some of the factors to consider. The most important one is define your objective and goals. It's not just simply because everyone is investing in digital platforms or going online, you should do the same agad. You need to define your short-term and long-term goal and adjust or align it with your vision or long-term strategy. You should also consider your industry or sector where you operate. It's not applicable for all. And even if you are in the same industry wherein your competitors are applying digital, doesn't necessarily means na automatic you should go online or increase your digital presence. Consider as well where you want to be or how would you like your company to be perceived as or your corporate image then. Next is to perform cost-benefit analysis. Remember, this will generate additional or most likely generate additional expense and even capex. The next step is to identify how you should do it or your approach and also what tools you should use. You can have someone from your IT department or through a project manager to lead this transition or digital transformation. While for most of the micro and small businesses, you can reach out to different platforms, like for example, for food or restaurant business, for your online delivery, you can have Grab, Food Panda, for example, and other products, you can increase it through e-commerce like Lazada and Shopee. And of course, regardless again of industry, you can take advantage of social media to market your product. Lastly, uh, choose the right people or train your employees to get the right skills and adapt to your new culture or new normal the soonest. So again, the soonest they can adapt, it is much better for the company in the long term then. Next slide, please. So here's the self-assessment for the post ECQ business plan. So this is more to assess if you are already prepared. So what position can you achieve after the ECQ is lifted? You should have defined objective and goal already in mind with your business operation plan. It should be present in your business plan or the ops plan natin na it's clearly defined that anyone from the top management or the management themselves will easily adapt these changes after they are, or they can easily implement as necessary changes since they are guided with a defined or clear objective and goal. So also, how will your culture and identity change? So this is also implemented there. Of course, we will invest in our marketing. We want to know how the consumer or the environment know us, our image culture within the company if it is changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And what is your current bounce back plan? This is our ops plan. And if you can't detail enough, you can't identify the detailed steps, activities, and projects, maybe you should review it. And having a bounce back plan or recovery plan would increase your confidence in when you resume your operations or your business. And lastly, how prepared are you to execute this plan? So again, you need to identify, is your resources prepared? Baka you have the plan in paper, but your resources are not yet prepared, especially our vendors and our employees. Okay, next slide, please. And that's it. I hope this helps everyone to identify what are expected in the post-ECQ environment, at the same time guide you in creating your business operation plan.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Ray, for that thorough discussion. So I'd like to announce the third raffle keyword. The third raffle keyword is, next slide please, response. So our third raffle keyword is response. I hope everyone got all of the different keywords throughout the presentation. So join the raffle by following our Sprout Facebook page and commenting these 3 keywords on the pinned post. So before we move on to the next portion of our event, which is the fireside chat, we'd like to show you a short video of Sprout to better introduce who we are.
So you've got your processes, and your company is an oiled machine that runs pretty smoothly, but under the hood, you have problems. You've got managers desperate to know the status of their open positions, leave requests getting lost in a jumble of emails, SMS and forms, and employees complaining about payroll errors. You've thought about some expensive custom software that would be a pain to maintain, or swimming in all the features of SAP or Oracle, or maybe even outsourcing your payroll altogether. Why can't you find a local, intelligent, well-supported software that caters to your needs as a Philippine company? Well, guess what? Here at Sprout, we've developed a system that just works. One system with all the features you need and without all those that you don't.
All right, so that's our video. Hope you guys enjoyed that. So the next portion of the event is our fireside chat. So prepare your questions and just type them in the chat box. And I'd like to welcome back our speaker, Mr. Ray Salvador. For our second panelist, let's all welcome Attorney Lester Nazarene Ople. So he has 12 years of human resources and management experience with progressively increasing scope and responsibility in the IT and the BPO, consumer goods, manufacturing, and government sectors. He practices the following fields of law: employment law, contract management, data privacy, administrative law, and family law as an advisor and as an advocate. Our third panelist is Data Privacy Officer and HR and Legal Consultant of Sprout Solutions. He has previously worked in reputable law firms and private companies as a labor and tax lawyer, counseling mostly for HR practitioners and company management. Jay Ryan helps companies address intricate HR and legal issues. Let's welcome Attorney Jay Ryan Trinidad. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can start asking your questions by using the Zoom chat. Okay. Are you guys there with me?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, me. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Lester and Ray.
Hey, good morning, guys. All right, so I have here a lot of questions from our audience. Okay, so the first one, we estimate that our sales in first few months after ECQ would decrease by half. We don't want to remove or terminate employees, but our revenue will not be enough to support our expense. What can we do?
Sorry, Miggy, I didn't get the question quite clearly.
Right. Let me just repeat that. So we estimate that our sales in the first few months after ECQ would decrease by half. We don't want to remove or terminate employees, but our revenue will not be enough to support our expense. What can we do?
Can I answer that, Attorney Lester?
Yes,
You
go
want
ahead,
me to answer
Attorney
that?
Ryan.
Of course, there are a lot of ways that you can address that problem, no. But legally, if you're really forced to retrench these employees, or you're really having a hard time keeping your finances, no, I think one of the options available for you under the law is to put them on a floating status, no. But again, a recommendation would be that you use that as your last option, no, because having said that, the employees would definitely suffer a loss of their income, no. So the way to do that, and Attorney Lesser already discussed this in his previous webinar, is that you can actually put your employees in a floating status for not more than 6 months, no. But it should not exceed that. Otherwise, it will tantamount to be to an illegal dismissal already, no. And once the operations is ready to resume, then you just have to recall them back, and then they can start working, and then return to getting their previous salaries, no.
And also, maybe you can help them, of course, help them with for small or medium enterprises to get or to avail the SPWS, or Small Business Wage Subsidy Program. This can help them financially, especially that their income will be affected. You can also explore other FWA or flexible working arrangement to ensure that everyone will still have or generate income during this difficult time. And also, you can guide them. For example, here in Sprout, employees are allowed to. There's an Instacash that they are can avail for loan for to financially support them for the meantime.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have
I'd like to dovetail on what Attorney Ryan and Attorney and Ray mentioned, no? And I think this would be responsive to the question that just came up in the chat. What if after 6 months you have no other options but to retrench? So if you would go to the material that we presented in the previous webinar, the one I think that was last week, we talked about the legal procedure on how to retrench, how to legally comply with the requirements of the law with respect to how to, the requirement of separation pay, the notices required. All of that information is available in our webinar material from last week. Now, aside from these legal options, what I would encourage you to do would be to explore the possibility of digital transformation. This COVID pandemic, the ECQ, has resulted in so much disruptive innovation. If you would see local government units like Antipolo, instead of prohibiting tricycles from plying their routes, they deputize these tricycles. They pay them a wage, and then these tricycles are used to deliver basic necessities to residents of Antipolo. No, so if you were able to get innovative ideas out of this ECQ, it's that people still need to buy the necessities. People will still, go out of their way to help other people. And if you can just wrap your management team would have to just work through that as an innovation exercise and see if you can come up with something absolutely new that would maybe transform the business, and it may eventually result in better profits for your business.
Attorney Lester, to your point about retrenchment, no, I think one of the pressing issue there and difficult discussion would be, our employers will be liable to pay separation pay of the
Yes.
retrenched employees, no. So if the ground for retrenchment is business losses or serious business losses, then under the law you're not really required to pay separation pay. But that's a very hard conversation, considering that you have to persuade the employees as well as the government that using by the use of convincing and sufficient evidence, evidence that you have really incurred, that your organization has really incurred business losses, no? So how do you show it? Syempre, kailangan nyo pong ipakita yung cash flow nyo, your audited financial statements, and then the money that you have in the bank, will it be sufficient or not in the next coming month? So if really by using those pieces of evidence you can show, then I think you have a valid ground to retrench your employees. But again, we really encourage our employers right now to exercise as much as possible, kindness. Na let's not retrench our, or terminate our employees. Okay.
All right. So thank you guys for the answer. I hope our attorneys have answered the question. We have another one. So it says here, how can we operate at 100% and at the same time comply with social distancing if our workspace is limited?
For this one, as discussed then earlier, we can opt to, and also as shared by Attorney Lester, we can start our digital transformation. We can identify which functions, especially on the back end or the back office function, can be done remotely. So we can explore different solutions or solutions provider to help us do things or to work or telecommute remotely or work from home arrangements. So this is one way to ensure that our space will be maximized and also it only allotted to those functions that can only work in that specific area or physically present in that area.
Can I also add, Miggy, that 100% being operational doesn't mean that all your employees should be physically present at the office. No? As Ray already said, there are innovative ways that we can be 100 operational without being physically there at the premises. No? But just in case you really decide to be 100% present in your office, I think the new normal bill would really guide you on how you should observe the physical distance needed. No? But another innovative way that you can do it, actually, this is what we're planning to do at Sprout, is for us to have an improvised barrier, no? Para kung talagang hindi maiiwasan, because the proposal is that there should be two spaces in between the employees. Pero kung talagang hindi maiiwasan at elbow to elbow talaga sila, as much as possible, let's use improvised barrier.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. Thank you so much, Attorney J. Ryan and Mr. Ray. We have another question here. Once the ECQ is lifted, BPOs will be allowed to operate with 50% workforce from office and 50% work from home. So it's divided by 3 follow-up questions. The first one is, should we move into the office immediately once ECQ is lifted or wait for some time? That's the first question.
If moving immediately to your offices, that's a management or internal decision na. So again, there are a lot of variables or uncertainties pa when the ECQ is lifted. So one of the measures implemented is that social distancing in private, in public, when in the public transport vehicles, like for example, sa bus. So it's quite difficult to accommodate all of these employees, even though 50% yung allowed. So that's one way that maybe we can explore muna or retain work from home arrangement for the meantime, or other areas like creating different hub so that employees can access it immediately for those who are near that area, providing private shuttles or even quarters. This is to minimize the impact to our employees, at the same time ensure their health and safety. Again, I haven't seen that all businesses should report immediately. It would be under the internal decision ng business.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to dovetail on what Ray said. No, when you make a decision on which functions or which departments would be needing to work from home or will be allowed to report back to the office, one of your primary considerations should be compliance with data privacy and other relevant legislation pertaining to the service line of the BPO. If your BPO is doing banking transactions, then it would be a little difficult because you would have technological and physical restrictions with respect to access to the workplace. But for other kinds of BPOs, like your normal voice support, these are things that would have a different level of data privacy and physical security requirements. So if you would go back to, I think, Ray, when was that, the business planning? You had another session prior to that. I think it's definitely available on the COVID resource website of Sprout. Please download the other webinar of Ray that talks about planning on BCP scenario, because the framework that you would apply in in defining your BCP, in planning your BCP, is also the same way, the same framework that you would approach as you identify which critical departments of your business will be allowed to go back to work or would still have to be retained on a work from home setup.
Okay. So the follow-up question to that, okay, you may have already answered, but just to clarify, who should be allowed to work from home and who needs to work from the office?
As noted by Attorney Lester earlier, that would depend on the management. So I suggest, as part of course, of your risk management and business continuity, is to identify what are the critical functions that are required to perform or operate at the same time. Which of these critical functions are required to report at the office? So you can start with that function step by step, and if kaya pa siya, you can expand it. So though I suggest gradual muna, considering that there are a lot of uncertainties and events that could happen when the GCQ or ECQ is lifted. So we don't know if the public transport is enough or capable of, and also what other requirements can be implemented. So for us, for example, we have planned already a we've already created our disaster recovery plan, and we will be proposing to initiate it at least a week or two after the GCQ or ECQ is lifted. And also our risk management procedure and also this plan is every day is updated every day. So if the government issued another proposal bill, for example, the new normal bill, we will update, ensure that our activities are aligned with this government requirement. At the same time, ensure that all risks, or at the minimum moderate risks, are properly managed.
Miggy, may I add also, no, that I think we should also go beyond the critical function, no, but let's also determine what are the available legislative or legal frameworks out there, no. We have the occupational safety hazard standards, the DOH standards, no. So meron talaga mga employees that will not be allowed to go to the office. Say for instance, those employees that are pregnant or that have secondary conditions that may further expose them to COVID, no. So those things we have to consider as well. So meron pang issue yan ng mental health also. What about those employees who are so worried and have trauma because of the COVID problem? So those are the things that your HR and your management have to put into consideration as well.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like it's very difficult to have a clear-cut definition of who should go to the office. It seems
I'd
like
also like to add lang,
essential,
Miggy, no?
right? Yes, go ahead.
One of your easiest departments to automate would definitely be your human resource department. Online tools like Sprout HR, we are offering the rescue kit package. So this is for a period that is at the same time at the ECQ, coterminous with the ECQ. Sprout is offering small and medium businesses the opportunity to use Sprout for free, completely free. So we will be onboarding you on our system, and we will be helping you, set up your automated HR department, which would result in hopefully your HR personnel not required to be physically at the office at all times. No, so at least you have one department that you would not be worrying about, and then you just have your everyone else in the company use Sprout for timekeeping, for payroll, for HR actions. So we are hopeful that by offering this rescue kit, we can help our MSME counterparts or colleagues in the sector, to undertake digital transformation, at least on a tool that has been proven, and it's something that we are confident that we can help you out on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So thanks, Attorney, for sharing our latest initiative in these uncertain times, which is the Sprout Rescue Kit. If any of you guys in this session are interested, feel free to let us know through the chat. We have one last question here. Okay. Unfortunately, we can't address all of these questions since it's already 12, but we'll address just one last one. For the PEZA registered BPO companies, will PEZA impose taxes to employees over the 50% allowed working remotely during GCQ?
Miggy, the short answer there is yes, no. So long as the employee is getting income and the employer is still obligated to withhold the income taxes of those employees and then remit once the BIR office resumes operation. No.
Mhm,
But I think
mhm.
there are also ways to pay this online. No? So there should be no reason for the employers not to pay and remit the withholding taxes of their employees, because this will be a qualification for them to apply for the SBWS as well. So medyo magkakatagni yan at magkakadikit. So they have to be compliant still despite the ECQ.
I'd like to just expand, Attorney Ryan. No? So you may have experienced income disruption for your employees. So in such cases, please go back to one of our previous webinars. Attorney Ryan and Ray was able to share in a previous webinar, resources about what to do when you have temporary suspension of operations or income disruption. So you have certain forms that you have to accomplish for PhilHealth, BIR, SSS, and Pag-ibig, so that you will avoid the penalty of non-payment or non-remittance or non-reporting. So please go back to the material from Attorney Ryan and Ray. The specific step-by-step instructions are there.
Okay, okay. So thanks, attorney, for the answer. So unfortunately, our time is up for this panel session. For the questions we weren't able to answer, you could always email us at legal@sprout.ph. We wish we had more time to answer all of your questions, burning questions, but we'll try to make sure that we get to them anyway, even outside the session. So thank you everyone for participating, and thank you Attorney Lester, Attorney Jay Ryan, and Mr. Ray for your inputs. So we also want to thank you our event partner, Up App. Again, Up App is an employee engagement platform that makes performance management simple and recognition fun to build engaged teams and happy workplaces. So now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, I'd like to announce the four raffle winners. All right, so we do have four raffle winners. Number one is Mr. Mark Rose. So the first one is Mr. Mark Rose. The second one is Miss Jean Dulay. Jean Dulay. Number three is Miss Nathanie Grace. Nathanie Grace. And the last winner is Miss Anne Mack. Anne Mack. So congratulations on our four raffle winners. For the winners, please type your email address in the Zoom chat box so that we can send you the GC codes through email. So thank you everyone for participating. We can also send you e-certificates for attending the session. Here are the instructions on how to get them. So you have to email the request through info@sprout.ph, and please don't forget to indicate your full name, company, and position. Okay, so please take note of this if you'd like to receive our certificate of attendance. And please follow our social media pages and use hashtag OB with Sprout to be updated on our events. If you want to download our previous presentations or watch any of our previous webinars, you can go to sprout.ph/COVID. Now, our different presenters today on multiple times said that we should refer to the different previous seminars or webinars rather for different topics that we have discussed. And so yeah, that's it. So thank you again for participating, and we hope to see you on our next webinar that's happening next Tuesday. Thank you so much.